Get out of the car now." The officer whose hand slammed against the roof of the silver Mercedes was James Whitfield, and his short-sleeved uniform stretched tight across his chest as he leaned down to glare through the window. The sneer on his face was deepened by the glare of the sun in the afternoon. "Did you think I would fall for this just because you're in scrubs?" The voice was so loud one could hear it from across the calm residential street that had manicured lawns that lead to million-dollar homes. Dr. Layla Okonkwo kept both hands clenched on the steering wheel as she almost sleepily swerved the darkened road after 16 hours of operating. "I am a neurosurgeon at Metropolitan General, sir. I just finished doing an emergency procedure." Whitfield scoffed with cold disdain. "Most definitely, darling. And I'm the Pope. Leave now or I'll drag you out." Without an idea on the matter, just hours before his steady hand saves the life of the one whom he loves most in the world. Welcome to Frost Folktales. This is where we tell the stories of those who were underestimated, dismissed, and targeted, yet chose courage over silence. If these stories move you, subscribe and be part of a community that refuses to let them fade into the background. Dr. Layla Okonkwo's blue surgical scrubs, which matched her sneakers, were wrinkled from the long operation. Both were still a bit dirty from the hospital. She reached for her medical hang on the rear mirror slowly and with great care. "Officer, I'm sure you're just doing your job, but I can show you my hospital ID and medical license. My home is located only 3 blocks away." The electrical streetlights turned on as soon as dark completely enveloped the area, signaling the upcoming clash, one which would surely bring destruction to both lives. Officer James Whitfield stepped back, his solid build blocking her way as his hand rested on his utility belt. "No way you touch anything without my say-so." His blue eyes narrowed as he looked through the window where he could see only what his prejudice allowed him to see. A black woman in a costly vehicle in a community which she clearly didn't belong, at least in his twisted mind. "You want me to believe a person like you owns a car that costs more than what I make in a year?" Dr. Layla Okonkwo's voice carried exhaustion as she spoke again, repeating her answer with practiced patience. "Sir, I have been in the hospital since yesterday morning. I recently finished a 16-hour-long neurosurgery on a child with a TBI. I am trying to get to my house to rest before my other job." She managed to keep her voice at a professional tone, the same voice she used to reassure the worried families sitting in the waiting room of the hospital, never knowing that one of those families was the man now terrorizing her. Whitfield laughed in a rough and rasping way. "Surgery for 16 hours? Lady, the only thing you've been cutting is drugs, not patients." As the fuss got louder, the annoyance seemed to increase in his voice. Windows opened all along the tree-lined street on which the incident took place, with many onlookers gathering at the site. "Get out of that stolen car before I lose it completely." Dr. Layla Okonkwo felt her heart racing, and not from guilt. It just dawned on her that things were getting out of hand. "Officer Whitfield, please observe my identification. They're right here hanging. I have my medical license, my hospital ID, and even surgical notes from today." She felt the prickly shiver of fear but didn't show it. Having handled some tough cases in the ER, she thought she'd seen it all. However, this situation was entirely different. "Get out now." Whitfield pulled on the door handle, completely out of patience. "I have no interest in your fake IDs. Do you think I was born yesterday?" He was breathing heavily with a red face, a sign of anger and more. From his gaze, she felt he was able to perceive and define who she was, and even what she meant in his small mind. Nothing but someone having blind bias in an officer's uniform. No questions asked. Dr. Layla Okonkwo took off her seatbelt slowly. "I'm doing as you requested, officer. You can see my hands. I'm not grasping for anything." She climbed out of the Mercedes, her blue scrubs glowing under the streetlight. The heat of the afternoon hit her as it rose back near, I want nothing more than to go home and rest." Whitfield stalked her like a predator, scanning her for even a small excuse to escalate. "I know your scrubs are fake. Even a fool can do it online for medical clothing." His voice dripped with contempt as he waved toward her car. "What's actually in that car? Substance? Illicit goods revenue from any venture you're managing?" Jim's assumptions flowed out of him like poison. He was as closed-minded as they come. The irony was crushing. While Whitfield hurled accusations, Dr. Layla Okonkwo's phone buzzed with messages from grateful colleagues praising her for the morning's successful surgery, the same surgery that had saved a little girl named Emma Whitfield, though neither of them knew it yet. "Sir, I understand your concerns, but I'm telling you the truth. I'm Dr. Layla Okonkwo, Chief of Neurosurgery at Metropolitan General. I specialize in pediatric brain trauma." "Pediatric brain trauma?" Whitfield's voice turned mocking. "Oh, now you're some kind of children's brain surgeon?" His laughter was cold and cruel. "Lady, I've heard every sob story, every fake profession, every lie designed to make me feel sorry for criminals. But this one takes the cake." The absurdity of the situation would have been comical if it weren't so terrifying. Dr. Layla Okonkwo felt the familiar weight of injustice settling on her shoulders, the same burden she carried every time someone questioned her qualifications because of her race. "This morning I operated on an 8-year-old girl who fell from playground equipment. Severe traumatic brain injury with subdural hematoma." She raised her hand slightly, demonstrating. "We had to perform a craniotomy to relieve the pressure and remove the blood clot. The surgery took 16 hours because of complications with brain swelling." Enough of this fantasy. Whitfield stepped closer, his imposing figure casting a shadow over her. "You think throwing around medical terms makes your story believable? I've got news for you, Princess. Real doctors don't drive through neighborhoods they don't belong in, acting suspicious and refusing to comply with police orders." His hand moved toward his taser, the gesture both threatening and final. "But I am complying," Dr. Layla Okonkwo protested, her voice still remarkably calm. "I got out of the car as requested. My hands are visible. I'm answering your questions. What more do you want me to do?" The frustration was beginning to crack through her professional composure. 16 hours of surgery, followed by this nightmare proving too much even for her incredible patience. "What I want is the truth." Whitfield's face was inches from hers now, his breath hot and angry. "The truth about how you got this car. The truth about where you're really coming from. The truth about what you're really doing in this neighborhood." His eyes held a dangerous gleam, the look of a man who had convinced himself he was the hero in this story. Dr. Layla Okonkwo realized with growing horror that nothing she said would matter. This wasn't about evidence or truth or justice. This was about a prejudiced man with a badge who had already decided her fate the moment he saw her skin color behind the wheel of an expensive car. "The child I operated on this morning," she repeated desperately. "Her father is probably at the hospital right now, grateful that his daughter is alive. If you would just call the hospital." "Is the father thankful?" Whitfield's laugh sounded cold and bitter. "It seems that you are devoted to your fantasy." His hand closed around the taser hanging from his belt, shining black like the streetlights above. "I want to talk about gratitude for a moment. A real father earns an honest living to feed his family. They are not used to criminals inventing stories about children." The afternoon sun dropped behind the expensive houses of Hillcrest, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. There stood Dr. Layla Okonkwo, facing the worst kind of injustice. Emma had spent all her adult life saving lives threatening her. Are children like Whitfield, whose father she now pointed out to her. Despite 16 hours in the surgery and shaking legs, she was still steady with her voice and tried reasoning for the last time. "Officer Whitfield, please, I'm begging you to check my credentials. Call the hospital. Ask for Dr. Raymond Yusuf, the chief of surgery. He can verify everything I'm telling you." The little girl I operated on, Emma Whitfield. She's in recovery right now because I spent all night and all morning fighting to save her life. Don't let this situation escalate when a simple phone call can clear everything up. Emma Whitfield. The name should have stopped him cold, should have made his world tilt on its axis. Instead, Whitfield's face contorted with rage at what he perceived as the ultimate violation, using his daughter's name in her elaborate lie. His hand tightened around the taser as his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Now you've crossed a line you can't uncross. Dr. Layla Okonkwo witnessed the movement of the man's hand towards the weapon. Suddenly, all the movements around her seemed as though they were in slow motion. She dealt with life and death in operating rooms, held children's lives in her hands, and made split-second decisions that led to celebration or mourning. However, she was not prepared for the realization that all the education, all the glory, all the years of saving life meant nothing to the man standing in front of her. With a soft click, the taser unclipped from his holster. It was done, and he was ready. Dr. Layla Okonkwo came to realize that this was beyond words, beyond reason, beyond justice. As her eyes widened, the person whose daughter she had saved merely hours ago was about to ruin both of their lives with his next action. Officer James Whitfield raised the taser, his finger moving toward the trigger, completely unaware at that moment he was about to assault the woman who had given him the greatest gift a father could receive, his daughter's life. Officer James Whitfield's hand hung over his taser. His short-sleeved police uniform clung tightly to his muscular body. His eyes were icy with hatred as this realization dawned on him, despite their earlier encounter. Regardless of Dr. Layla's calm demeanor and clear explanations, regardless of her medical credentials and professional appearance, he had already made up his mind. "Keep your hands visible," Officer Whitfield barked, despite Dr. Layla's immobility. Her hands stayed up and she wasn't threatening, with her voice calm despite the tiredness in her shoulders. "First, confirm my medical license and hospital identification. I've just done a 16-hour neurosurgery on a child with a traumatic brain injury. I'm going home," Dr. Layla said in an authoritative voice filled with command of her expertise. The courage against the police ordering her to not leave and her exhaustion. Officer Whitfield clenched his jaw. It was the way she composed herself and the way she was educated and successful in this high-end neighborhood that did something dark to him. To him, she had no place being here. That woman cannot be who she says she is. He could barely contain his rage because the evidence contradicts everything he believes about colored people. "Quit lying to me," he hissed as he unclipped his taser. "You look like one of those drug dealers we always catch. And you know they all have fake IDs. Dr. Layla's heart raced, but not due to the fear of being caught playing perp to a crime that never happened. However, she did realize that there will be no amount of evidence, no level of acquiescence, and no display of her character that would sway this man. She had seen that look before, in emergency rooms where families could barely believe a black woman would be the surgeon operating on their relative. However, this situation seemed different. It was perilous. "Officer Whitfield," she reads his nameplate. "I know you are doing your job, but listen to me. I am Dr. Layla Okonkwo, attending neurosurgeon at Metropolitan General Hospital. I have a heart condition. Please de-escalate this situation." The mention of her heart condition only seemed to enrage him further. "More lies," he spat. "You people always claim some medical condition when you get caught." Without warning, without announcement, without giving Dr. Layla any chance to comply with additional commands, Officer Whitfield raised his taser and fired. The electrical shock hit Dr. Layla like lightning. Her body went rigid as 50,000 volts coursed through her nervous system. She collapsed beside her car, her red-blue scrubs bright against the dark asphalt, her body convulsing uncontrollably. The sound that escaped her throat was raw and primal, a cry of pain that echoed down the quiet residential street. The commotion had barely begun. As neighbors peered out to see what was happening, front doors opened cautiously. Dr. Layla's screams and Officer Whitfield's shouts were shattering the peaceful day. Mrs. Dorothy Chen, a retired teacher living 3 houses down, ran out of her home. She had known Dr. Layla for 2 years, having watched her go to the hospital every hour and seen her tending to her small garden on weekends. Mrs. Chen pulled out her phone and started recording. Her hands were shaking as she captured the scene. Officer Whitfield did not take down his taser away from Dr. Layla, who was writhing on the ground. The current stopped. Dr. Layla lay on the ground gasping, her muscles twitching and convulsing at the shock. Her heart, already drained and strained from exhaustion and stress, began to race. "Please," she murmured, but her voice was low. "I have a problem with my heart." Officer Whitfield completely ignored her. He seized her arms forcefully and yanked them behind her back. Dr. Layla cried out as he cuffed her hands behind her back painfully, and the crumpled metal bit into her skin. She was still coming off the taser period, fine motor control not quite back, her body shaking. "Officer, my heart," she managed to say again, her voice stronger now, but filled with genuine medical concern. "The electrical shock, combined with my condition, I could be having arrhythmia. Save it for someone who cares," Officer Whitfield replied, hauling her to her feet with unnecessary force. Dr. Layla swayed unsteadily, the world spinning around her as her cardiovascular system struggled to recover. That's when Mrs. Dorothy Chen approached, her phone still recording, her voice filled with outrage. "Officer, what are you doing? That's Dr. Okonkwo. She lives right there in the blue house with the rose garden. She's a neurosurgeon at Metropolitan General." Officer Whitfield spun around to look at an elderly Asian woman with an angry, embarrassed face. "Ma'am, retreat. We are the police." "I can't go on." Mrs. Chen stepped closer, even as he apart. "As far as I can remember, I've been acquainted with Dr. Okonkwo. She saves lives for a living. She's one of the best people in my neighborhood." More of the neighbors had been coming out now. Many were recording as it happened on their phones. A young father wearing a green t-shirt and a blue jeans stood on the porch with a mug of coffee shaking his head. An old man in a blue jacket walked closer with his dog to have a look. Officer Whitfield sensed the burden of their scrutiny, their judgment, their recording. He reinforced his actions instead of rethinking them. "I don't care what you people think you know." She drove erratically, wouldn't give her proper ID, and was acting suspiciously. Still handcuffed and unable to shake off being tasered, Dr. Layla attempted to speak. "I thank you, Mrs. Chen. My identification is in my purse, Officer Whitfield. My medical license is current, and I've been nothing but cooperative." At that moment, Dr. Layla's phone began buzzing insistently from inside her car. The sound was urgent, the kind of rapid-fire calling that indicated a medical emergency. Officer Whitfield heard it, and his expression grew even more suspicious. "Probably your drug dealer friends wondering where you are," he muttered. Mrs. Chen stepped forward boldly. "Officer, that's likely the hospital calling. Dr. Okonkwo gets emergency calls all the time. She's saved dozens of lives in this community." The phone continued buzzing, then stopped, then started again immediately. Dr. Layla's face showed genuine distress, not about her own situation, but about the potential patient who might need her expertise. "Officer, please. Someone could be dying. That's how the hospital reaches me for emergency surgeries. I need to answer that call." Officer Whitfield's pride was now fully engaged. He had gone too far to back down, had used force in front of witnesses, had committed to his version of events. The evidence mounting around him, the witness testimony, the obvious signs that he had made a terrible mistake, only made him more defensive. "Nobody's answering anything," he declared. "I'm searching this vehicle for drugs and weapons." He moved to Dr. Layla's BMW, and began rifling through it roughly. In the front seat, he found her medical bag, filled with surgical instruments and medications. On the passenger seat lay a stack of surgical notes in her handwriting, detailing the 16-hour procedure she had just completed. Her hospital parking pass hung from the rearview mirror, clearly valid and current. Officer Whitfield's hands shook slightly as he examined a surgical report with Emma Whitfield's name on it, though the significance didn't register yet. The document detailed a complex brain surgery, written in Dr. Layla's careful medical handwriting. Her prescription pad was there, properly secured and numbered. Surgical instruments that cost thousands of dollars were neatly organized in her medical bag. Mrs. Chen watched from the sidewalk, still recording, her voice growing more assertive. "Officer, look at those surgical instruments. Look at those medical records. That woman just spent the night saving someone's life, and you're treating her like a criminal." More neighbors had gathered now, and their murmur of disapproval was growing louder. Officer Whitfield felt their judgment, saw their phone cameras pointed at him, heard their whispered conversations about police brutality and racial profiling. Dr. Layla's phone began buzzing again, and this time Officer Whitfield picked it up. The caller ID showed Metropolitan General Hospital Emergency Department. Even faced with this evidence, even seeing the surgical notes and medical equipment, even hearing the witness testimony from neighbors who knew Dr. Layla personally, his pride wouldn't let him admit his mistake. "This doesn't prove anything," he announced, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Drug dealers fake medical credentials all the time. The crowd of neighbors became increasingly agitated as Mrs. Chen's recording caught his voice. "Officer, you're making a grave error. Dr. Okonkwo has probably saved more lives than you can count. She's a hero in this community." Officer Whitfield heard his radio and knew he was too far in to walk away. His status as a professional, as a reputable man, as one who knows what he is doing, depends on being right about the arrest. The other option, which was to own up to having brutally tasered an innocent doctor who had just saved a person's life, was too awful to consider. Officer Whitfield could have released Dr. Layla, apologized, and acknowledged the overwhelming evidence of his error, instead of reaching for his radio and calling for backup. Unit 7 calling for more units to Maple Grove Drive, needing help with arrest and crowd control. In the white, the Dr. Layla handcuffed next to her car, her blue scrubs wrinkled and dirty due to her fall. Her heart raced in the aftermath of the taser shock as she witnessed Officer Whitfield opt for pride over justice. While all this was happening, the neighbors continued recording. Wherever the injustice takes place, it usually spreads on social media. As the sun continued to illuminate the sky, it had also begun to illuminate a scene that would change many people's lives forever. Dr. Layla Okonkwo's phone shrieked at 5:47 a.m. in the morning. Emerging from slumber, she found herself clad in a red silk pajama top along with matching bottoms, her hand groping for her phone. The caller ID indicated the emergency number for Metropolitan General Hospital. "Dr. Okonkwo speaking," she said, sounding very much awake in the early hour. "Incoming critical pediatric case, doctor," are the words that came through the speaker of Nurse Teresa Gibbs, a female 8-year-old with severe TBI after a playground accident. 7-minute ETA. "We need you here now." Dr. Layla Okonkwo was already out of bed and turning on the overhead fluorescent lights that made her bedroom bright and clinical white. Health status: unresponsive, likely bleeding in the skull, major edema. The paramedics reported that she fell on concrete after monkey bars. "It's not good, doctor. Prep or 3 and call Dr. Yusuf. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Dr. Layla Okonkwo hung up the phone and quickly changed into her green scrub top and matching pants, mentally switching into surgery mode. A 12-minute drive through slightly deserted morning roads took Dr. Layla Okonkwo to Metropolitan General Hospital. Natural skylight flooded the large atrium through the high glass windows As Dr. Layla Okonkwo rushed through the automatic doors, she wore red sneakers that squeaked on the polished linoleum floor. A state of controlled chaos awaited her in the emergency room. The gurney was full of medical equipment, and on it was Emma Whitfield, unconscious at the moment. Her hair was blonde, and her face pale and swollen. Mrs. Linda Whitfield, the girl's mother, stood with her back to the wall, wearing a red cardigan and blue jeans. The neurosurgeon, Dr. Layla Okonkwo, walked up calmly and said, "Mrs. Whitfield, we are going to take great care of Emma. Please save her," Mrs. Linda Whitfield said with a tissue in hand. "She became 8 last month. She loves the monkey bars. I told to be careful, but kids, right?" Dr. Layla Okonkwo comforted the mom by placing a hand on her shoulder. "We will do our best. It may take hours for the surgery. Is your husband coming? He's a cop, working the night. I rang him up, but he can't leave his shift. He says he will come when he can." Beside us appeared Dr. Raymond Yusuf, his green scrub top glinting in the lights. When the chief of surgery arrived, we knew this case was serious. The CT scan shows massive hemorrhaging with a midline shift. "Layla, we've got to move fast." Dr. Layla Okonkwo gave a nod while watching the scans on screen. The scan confirmed a huge blood clot on Emma's brain, which was causing inflammation. The child would die very soon without help. Emma has an acute subdural hematoma, meaning there is swelling of her brain, Mrs. Whitfield. The blood clot must be removed to relieve the pressure above the brain, and hence surgery is needed. The process is quite complicated and will take many hours. Are you getting it? Mrs. Linda Whitfield nodded through her tears. Will she be all right? Dr. Layla Okonkwo picked her words very carefully. I won't lie to you. This injury is very serious. Emma won't make it without surgery. She has a chance of recovery with surgery. I have done hundreds of these procedures, and I promise you my full commitment and ability. Then please, do what you have to do. Emma Whitfield was brought into operating room number 3 within minutes. A buzzing energy filled the room as the surgical team prepared. While Dr. Marcus Chen monitored Emma, Nurse Teresa Gibbs in blue scrub top and pants arranged instruments. All right, everyone, we have a long day ahead, Dr. Layla Okonkwo said. As she began scrubbing in, a female aged 8 years presents with an acute subdural hematoma with a significant midline shift. Extensive clot removal and possible cranial pressure monitoring are being contemplated. The surgeon made the first incision on the operating table under the glare of the overhead surgical lights. Her hands moved with skillful precision, and each cut of hers was executed very deliberately and in a controlled manner. As she progressed through the skin, muscle, and bone, the skull also revealed itself. "Pressure's steady," Dr. Chen said from his monitors. "Great. Ray, can you see how extensive the bleeding is from your position?" Dr. Raymond Yusuf closed in and got a better look. "You've got damage, but clean access, so that's good." Dr. Layla Okonkwo was constantly focused on the surgery. With her hands, she removed Emma's blood clots in a delicate procedure taking place in the girl's brain. The girl's life depended on it. While she had sweat on her forehead under the surgical mask, this never distracted her focus. Hours went in focus to remove the blood clots. "Teresa, I can't see. I need better visibility," she requested. "The clotting is significant. Will you mind adjusting the retractor?" "Certainly, doctor." Nurse Teresa Gibbs precisely modified the apparatus, her years of experience evident in coordinating the adjustments seamlessly. Dr. Layla Okonkwo had to give it her all during this surgery. The doctor had to clear away damaged tissue, but had to make sure that she does not remove too much of the healthy part of the brain. The clot was bigger than the earlier scans indicated, so that required more extensive work. "How are we doing on time?" she asked without looking up from her work. 8 hours in, Dr. Raymond Yusuf replied. "You're making excellent progress." In the family waiting room, Mrs. Linda Whitfield paced the floor. her red cardigan now wrinkled from hours of anxious waiting. Other families came and went, but she remained, sustained only by coffee and prayer. She tried calling her husband, Officer James Whitfield, multiple times, but he remained on patrol, unable to leave his shift. Back in the operating room, Dr. Layla Okonkwo encountered a complication. The bleedings increased in this sector. "Teresa, I need the microsutures ready." "Already prepared, doctor." Dr. Layla Okonkwo worked with microscopic precision, sealing tiny blood vessels and ensuring proper circulation to healthy brain tissue. The procedure required absolute steadiness, and despite her fatigue, her hands remained rock solid. "Pressure's stabilizing," Dr. Chen announced. "Vitals are looking better." "Excellent. We're making real progress now." As the 14th hour approached, Dr. Layla Okonkwo began the delicate process of closing the surgical site. The most dangerous part was complete, but precision remained crucial. Every suture had to be perfect to ensure proper healing. "Ray, what's your assessment of our work here?" Dr. Raymond Yusuf smiled behind his mask. "Textbook surgery, Layla. You've given this child her best possible chance. The swelling should reduce significantly over the next 24 hours. Dr. Layla Okonkwo explained to her team. "We'll need continuous monitoring, but I'm optimistic about her recovery." Nurse Teresa Gibbs began organizing the instruments. "Doctor, you've been on your feet for 16 hours. When did you last eat?" "Food can wait. Let's get Emma to recovery and speak with her mother." In the Whitfield family waiting room, Mrs. Linda Whitfield looked up hopefully as Dr. Layla Okonkwo approached, dressed in surgical scrubs. The bright light cast by the skylight windows and fluorescent lights gave the tired surgeon an almost angelic glow. The doctors stopped the bleeding in Emma's brain and removed the blood clot, and the surgery ended successfully. They did not find any other problem in her brain tissue. Mrs. Linda Whitfield fell into a chair, crying with relief. "Many thanks for this," they thanked him over and over. "Can I see her? She is recovering now. She is going to be out cold for several more hours while the anesthetic wears off. You can sit with her. The next 48 you will have to keep an eye on her, but I am very happy with how the surgery went." "I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Okonkwo. You saved my little girl's life." Dr. Layla Okonkwo smiled, the exhaustion finally beginning to show in her eyes. "That's what we're here for. Emma's a fighter, and she's going to need that strength for recovery. The nursing staff will keep you updated on everything." As Mrs. Linda Whitfield was escorted to the recovery unit, Dr. Layla Okonkwo finally allowed herself to feel the weight of the marathon surgery. 16 hours of intense concentration, steady hands, and life-or-death decisions. Another child's life saved through her skill and dedication. Dr. Raymond Yusuf approached as she prepared to leave. "Layla, exceptional work today. That was one of the most complex pediatric brain surgeries I've witnessed. You should be proud." "Just doing my job, Ray. But thank you. That little girl has her whole life ahead of her now. Get some sleep at your home." Dr. Layla Okonkwo cleared out her desk and walked toward the multi-story parking facility. The drive home through her high-priced neighborhood ought to be quiet. After all, she had just saved a child's life. Emma Whitfield would soon grow up, go to school, and play on the monkey bars again. Successful surgery always brings satisfaction, she thought, even if you wince when you see your reflection. But the reality is one rarely has time to rejoice, even if they engage in the finest professions, especially the medical profession. As Layla drove her luxury sedan through the empty streets, it wasn't long before she thought about Emma's recovery. It will take time, of course, but the prognosis is excellent. Thanks to 16 hours of surgical precision, the child will live a normal life. It was impossible for her to know that the father of the child whose life she saved would mistake her for the thief who stole his car and attack her with a stun gun. This ironic twist would soon become a nightmare that changes their lives for eternity. After saving the life of Officer James Whitfield's daughter, Dr. Layla Okonkwo eagerly returned home to have a shower and rest. While at the same time, little did she suspect she was about to shatter the world of Officer James Whitfield. The bright fluorescent lights on the roof of the patrol car illuminated Officer James Whitfield's face as the radio began to crackle. His phone was vibrating insistently on his belt. His wife's profile picture was displayed on the screen. Behind the reinforced partition, Dr. Layla Okonkwo sat in the back seat. Her wrists were still bound with metal handcuffs. Officer James Whitfield answered the call with one hand while continuing to fill out the arrest paperwork with the other. "James, thank God you answered." Linda's voice trembled over the speaker. It was hoarse with exhaustion and relief. "I've been trying to reach you for hours. Something's happened with Emma." Officer James Whitfield's pen froze mid-sentence as he wrote the incident report. His daughter's name cut through his bureaucratic concentration like a knife. What happened? What happened to Emma? "She ran into trouble at the park. A severe tumble from the monkey bars." Linda was speaking fast now. Her words were punctuated with fits. "James, they took her to Metropolitan General for emergency brain surgery," she said. "The doctors said she might not survive without it. I've been here for the whole night waiting." The arrest paperwork fell out of Officer James Whitfield and scattered on the passenger seat. His heart started to race against his ribs at the thought of his daughter's condition. A few feet behind him, Dr. Layla Okonkwo shifted in the back seat. She picked up on scraps of the medical emergency being discussed a few feet from her. "Is she okay now? Tell me she's okay, Linda." The voice of Officer James Whitfield cracked with fear of a father. "She's stable. The surgery was successful, but she needs her daddy here. The surgeon was incredible, James. 16 hours of surgery to save our little girl's life. Dr. something, Okonkwo, I think. She was amazing, so skilled and kind even though she looked exhausted." Officer James Whitfield's blood felt like ice water in his veins. But he pushed the uncomfortable coincidence aside. Okonkwo was probably a common name. Lots of doctors worked long hours. "I'm finishing up here, and I'll be right there." "Which floor?" "Pediatric ICU, 5th floor. Please hurry, James. Emma keeps asking for you." Officer James Whitfield saw his reflection in the rearview mirror after the call ended. His short-sleeved uniform shirt was already wet with sweat, even though it was morning. Dr. Layla Okonkwo sat tame behind him. She retained her dignity in handcuffs while he grew more and more agitated. Officer James Whitfield gathered the papers and shoved them into a manila folder. He had to get this woman booked and processed to go to his daughter. He thought it rather unfair that he was arresting someone while his child lay in the hospital, but he chose not to dwell on it. There was nothing more than another criminal in an expensive car. Officer James Whitfield charged through the automatic doors of Metropolitan General Hospital 20 minutes later. The fluorescent lights above made everything look sharper as he walked through the familiar maze of corridors to the lifts. His leather duty boots squeaked against the shiny floor as he pressed the button, indicating the 5th floor repeatedly. He was clearly in a hurry and not much patience. Within the pediatric ICU, there were activities in natural light coming through the large windows. Nurses in colored scrubs moved between rooms and the beeping of electric monitors could be heard throughout the hospital. Officer James Whitfield quickly spotted Linda with her red cardigan sitting in the family waiting area. Her face and body language exhibited deep lines that suggested an experience that made her older than her age. "Linda," he called softly while encircling his arms around his wife. In his embrace, she felt fragile, trembling from exhaustion and stress. Linda curled against his shoulder and said, "She's sleeping now." The surgeon explained that the next 48 hours are crucial, but she is optimistic. "James, you should have seen this doctor in action. Everyone here talks about her as though she walks on water." Prior to Officer James Whitfield's response, a very tall black man in green surgeon scrubs approached. The name tag on his uniform said Dr. Raymond Yusuf and Chief of Surgery. The overhead lights bounced off his glasses, and he reached out to shake. "You must be Emma's father. I am Dr. Yusuf. I helped in her surgery." Officer James Whitfield shook the hand of the surgeon whose firm grip signified confidence. "How is she going, Doc?" "My wife says it went well." "Your daughter is quite lucky. The traumatic brain injury was severe. However, Dr. Okonkwo did a brilliant job. 16 straight hours of the most delicate neurosurgery I have seen in my 20-year career. She removed a major blood clot and repaired damaged tissue that could have left Emma disabled or worse." The name hit Officer James Whitfield like a physical blow, but he tried to maintain his composure. "Dr. Okonkwo?" "Dr. Layla Okonkwo, our head of neurosurgery. Absolutely exceptional surgeon. She literally just left the hospital about an hour ago after staying to monitor Emma's recovery. Most surgeons would have gone home after the procedure, but she wanted to ensure everything was stable." Officer James Whitfield's mouth went dry. The timeline was lining up in ways that made his stomach churn with growing dread. An hour ago, he had been filling out arrest paperwork. An hour ago, he had been justifying his actions to skeptical neighbors. An hour ago, he had dismissed every word from the woman who now sat in a jail cell. "Dr. Okonkwo," the officer James Whitfield said hoarsely, "can you describe her?" Dr. Yusuf smiled in admiration. "Brilliant woman, an African-American probably in her late 30s, extremely expert and compassionate. She gave a detailed description of everything to your wife and ensured Emma was comfortable even unconscious. She somehow makes families feel hopeful even in the darkest times," Linda said, nodding with zeal beside him. "She was so kind, James. Even if she looked completely drained, she still took time to hold my hand and explain her actions. She explained to me the surgery in detail, also showed the brain scans. I could see that she really cared about Emma, not as a case, but she really liked Emma." Officer James Whitfield felt the walls of the hospital were closing in on him. The lights were brighter than before, more accusatory. Suddenly, he felt his heart pound so loudly, he was sure it could be heard. What did she wearing? Dr. Yusuf looked puzzled by the question. "Her surgical scrubs, I suppose." "Why do you ask?" "I mean before the surgery. When she came in," Linda thought for a moment. "Green scrubs with a blue medical jacket. She looked like she had just finished another long shift when the emergency call came in. Dr. Yusuf said she came straight from her car in the parking lot." The world tilted on its axis. Officer James Whitfield gripped the arm of Linda's chair to steady himself, his knuckles white against the vinyl upholstery. The woman he had tased, handcuffed, and arrested was the same woman who had spent 16 hours saving his daughter's life. The woman whose medical credentials he had dismissed as fake had just performed a miracle that kept Emma alive. Can you show me a photo of Dr. Okonkwo?" The words barely made it above a whisper. Dr. Yusuf raised an eyebrow, but took them to a wall display of the department heads at the hospital. "Right here, Chief of Neurosurgery Dr. Layla Okonkwo. She graduated first in her class from Johns Hopkins and completed her residency at Mass General." Officer James Whitfield stared at the professional headshot on the wall. Dr. Layla Okonkwo smiled comfortably in the image. Underneath it, neat serialization of her medical degree, certifications, and so forth. It was the same face he'd seen contorted with pain when 50,000 volts surged through it. The same face that looked at him with dignified reproach as he accused her of theft and dealing drugs. The same face that was in the process of trying to tell him she had just done an emergency surgery. "We're very lucky to have her expertise here." The recognition hit him like a freight train. His legs nearly buckled as the full horror of what he had done crashed over him in devastating waves. This woman, this brilliant surgeon, had left his daughter's bedside and driven home in a state of exhaustion after performing a medical miracle, and he had repaid her life-saving work by treating her like a common criminal. "Officer Whitfield?" Dr. Yusuf's voice sounded distant, concerned. "Are you all right? You look pale." James Whitfield, the officer, was mute. He felt like choking due to tightening of his throat. He is seeing flashes of images in his head. He sees Dr. Layla Okonkwo explaining that she is a neurosurgeon. She raises her hands in the air as she tries to cool him down. She is now convulsing on the ground after he zaps her with the taser. Her medical bag has notes and tools proving everything she told him. "James, what's wrong?" Linda stood up, placing a worried hand on his arm. "You're scaring me." The truth sat like a lead weight in his chest. He had just destroyed the woman who saved his daughter's life. He had brutalized the angel who had worked 16 straight hours to ensure Emma would wake up and call him daddy again. The magnitude of his mistake, his prejudice, his blind assumptions crashed over him with crushing force. Dr. Yusuf was studying his reaction with growing concern. "Officer, do you know Dr. Okonkwo? Has something happened?" Officer James Whitfield opened his mouth, but no sound emerged. How could he possibly explain that he had just arrested their daughter's savior? How could he tell Linda that while she was praising the surgeon's kindness, he was filling out paperwork to charge that same surgeon with grand theft auto and resisting arrest? The hospital corridor spun around him as the full weight of his actions settled into his consciousness. Dr. Layla Okonkwo was sitting in a jail cell while Emma slept peacefully thanks to her surgical expertise. The woman he had dismissed and degraded was the hero who had given his family their miracle. Officer James Whitfield's world shattered completely as he stared at Dr. Layla Okonkwo's photograph on the wall, knowing he had just committed an unforgivable act against the woman who had saved everything he held dear. Officer James Whitfield stood stock still in the hospital corridor, his hands shaking. He stared at the wall-mounted medical directory with a picture of Dr. Layla Okonkwo. She was the same woman he had just violently tased a couple hours ago. The same woman whose calm voice had said, "I'm a neurosurgeon." The woman who saved his daughter's life moments earlier. His radio didn't come to life until he froze. His fingers shook and fumbled for his phone, and as he dialed the station, he thought his heart was going to stop. Detective Carl Simmons picked up on the second ring. "Simmons present." "Hey Carl, it's Whitfield. Can you release that woman I brought you earlier?" "Dr. Okonkwo." "I said now." His voice was breaking. "Slow down, James. What's going on?" "She was already processed and released on her own recognizance about an hour ago. Clean record. Respected member of the community." The desk sergeant said she was pretty banged up though. "What happened out there?" Officer James Whitfield closed his eyes, the fluorescent hospital lighting suddenly feeling harsh and accusatory. "Where did she go? Did she say where she was going?" "Yeah, actually. She said she was coming back to the hospital to check on her patients." "James, you sound like hell. What's this about?" The phone slipped from Officer James Whitfield's sweaty palm, clattering to the polished hospital floor. A passing nurse in red scrubs gave him a concerned look, but he barely noticed. Dr. Layla Okonkwo was here, in this building, continuing to work despite what he had done to her. She had returned to care for his daughter and other patients after being tased, arrested, and humiliated. 3 floors up, in the pediatric ICU, Dr. Layla Okonkwo was moving quietly between patient rooms, the pain throbbing in her shoulder and the emotional trauma of being arrested did not deter her. She had gone back to Metropolitan General Hospital straight away after being released. Emma Whitfield was needed by her patients and needed monitoring. She halted outside Emma's room to check on the 8-year-old's chart. The condition of the little girl is stable and her vital signs are improving. Though the brain surgery was successful, the next 48 hours remained crucial. Dr. Okonkwo pushed any pain she felt from the recent incident aside and walked into the room smiling. Emma lay sleeping peacefully. The monitors beeped steadily, each sound a reassuring confirmation that the child's brain was healing properly. Mrs. Linda Whitfield, a red cardigan on her shoulders, sat beside the bed, her eyes red from weeping but hopeful. Mrs. Linda Whitfield stood up from her chair and said, "Dr. Okonkwo, I can't thank you enough. The other doctors said you stayed for 16 straight hours saving Emma. I don't know how we can ever repay you." The doctor slowly arrived at the patient's bedside. 9 words, although sore from the taser, she remained professional and composed when she responded to the situation. "Mrs. Whitfield, Emma is a fighter. The brain is responding quite beautifully to the surgery. The swelling is much less than this morning." While inspecting Emma's pupils with her penlight, Dr. Layla Okonkwo's blue jacket shifted to reveal a dark bruise on her neck. Linda Whitfield observes it immediately. "Doctor, what happened to your neck? Are you hurt?" Dr. Layla Okonkwo instinctively pulled her jacket close and shook her head. "We won't have to worry, Mrs. Whitfield. Let's focus on Emma." But Nurse Teresa Gibbs, entering the room with Emma's medication, had also noticed. The veteran nurse in her red uniform top and blue cardigan had worked with Dr. Layla Okonkwo for over 5 years and knew her better than most. She had never seen the composed surgeon look so physically uncomfortable. "Dr. Okonkwo, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" Nurse Teresa Gibbs asked, her voice carrying a note of concern that brooked no argument. In the hallway outside Emma's room, under the bright overhead fluorescent lights, Nurse Teresa Gibbs gently pulled back Dr. Layla Okonkwo's jacket collar. What she saw made her gasp audibly. Dark bruises and 2 distinct burn marks from taser prongs marred Dr. Layla Okonkwo's neck and shoulder. "Dear God, Layla, what happened to you? These look like taser burns." Nurse Teresa Gibbs's voice rose with indignation. Dr. Layla Okonkwo sighed deeply, her professional mask finally slipping to reveal the exhaustion and trauma beneath. "I was stopped by police on my way home this morning. The officer didn't believe I was a doctor. When I tried to explain, he tased me and arrested me." "A police officer did this to you? After you just spent 16 hours saving a child's life?" Nurse Teresa Gibbs's voice carried down the corridor, causing several other staff members to look over with concern. "Can you quieten down, Teresa, please? I'd prefer not to make a fuss. My priority is my patients." However, Layla could see that news was already spreading through the hospital. Dr. Priya Nair was passing by in green scrubs and a blue lab coat when she overheard and came straight over. "Layla, did someone assault you? This needs to be reported instantly," she instructs as a small group of medical staff gathers around Dr. Gas, Layla Okonkwo, all of whom look outraged yet protective. From nurse to nurse and doctor to doctor, word has spread of her brutal treatment, and that anger is starting to boil over at Metropolitan General Hospital. Dr. Raymond Yusuf arrived on the scene, his expression darkening as he took in Dr. Layla Okonkwo's visible injuries. "Layla, I want you to go to the emergency department immediately and get those injuries documented. This is unacceptable." "Raymond, I'm fine. Emma needs monitoring and I have other patients to check on." "Emma will be monitored by the entire pediatric team. You're going to get medical attention and then we're reporting this to administration and the authorities." As if summoned by the commotion, hospital administrator Dr. Philip Adeyemi appeared in the corridor, his presence commanding immediate attention. The distinguished man in his blue jacket and green shirt surveyed the gathered staff with concern. "What's going on here? Dr. Okonkwo, you look like you've been injured." Dr. Raymond Yusuf stepped forward, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Philip, Dr. Okonkwo was brutally assaulted by a police officer this morning after completing Emma Whitfield's surgery. She was tased and arrested for no legitimate reason." Dr. Philip Adeyemi went from worried to angry. "What you are saying is that one of our best surgeons was attacked by police after saving a child." The accumulating throng of medicos had given their collective nod when Donpal surveyed them in the gleaming corridor. Dr. Layla Okonkwo stood at the center of everything. She was overwhelmed but focused on her job nevertheless. "Thank you for your concern, but I really must see my other patients," she said quietly. Suddenly, the doors of an elevator opened, and stepped out Officer James Whitfield, disheveled in his police uniform, with a pale and pained face. He had swapped his long-sleeved duty shirt for a short-sleeved one, but both his badge and gun belt were still on him, and hence immediately noticeable to the hospital staff. All eyes in the corridor turned towards him with undisguised hostility. 24 pairs. Officer James Whitfield locked eyes with Dr. Layla Okonkwo and nearly collapsed on his knees upon seeing the damage to her neck and how she stepped carefully because of pain. "I'm so sorry," he said brokenly. "Dr. Okonkwo, I had no idea. I don't understand." Officer Whitfield was neither angry nor aggressive, just dumbfounded by Dr. Layla Okonkwo's revelation. Mirroring her professionalism with all family members, Dr. Okonkwo maintained her composure despite all the harm he did to her. "Officer Whitfield, your daughter is doing very well. The surgery was successful and she is recovering as expected." This gracious response from his brutalized subject felt like a physical blow to Officer James Whitfield. Here is a woman who has been dehumanized, detained, tased, and arrested, yet she chooses to speak in the same kind manner as she does with every parent at the hospital. "You don't understand," he said desperately. "I was the one who hurt you. I was the officer who stopped you this morning. I tased you. I arrested you. And you saved my daughter's life." The revelation sent a shockwave through the assembled medical staff. Nurse Teresa Gibbs stepped protectively in front of Dr. Layla Okonkwo, her face blazing with anger. "You're the animal who did this to her? She spent 16 hours saving your child, and you repaid her by nearly killing her." Dr. Raymond Yusuf moved forward, his usual calm demeanor replaced by barely contained rage. "Security should remove you from this hospital immediately. You have no right to be here after what you've done." Officer James Whitfield's world crumbled around him as he faced the collective judgment of people who had witnessed Dr. Layla Okonkwo's dedication and skill firsthand. These were professionals who had worked alongside her, who knew her character and commitment to healing. Their protective anger was justified and overwhelming. "Please," he begged, looking directly at Dr. Layla Okonkwo. "Please let me apologize. Let me explain." Dr. Layla Okonkwo raised her hand slightly, quieting the angry voices around her. Despite her pain and trauma, she maintained her professional dignity. "Officer Whitfield, your daughter needs her family right now. Mrs. Whitfield has been waiting for you. Emma's recovery is what matters most." Her grace under pressure, her ability to separate her personal trauma from her professional duties, left Officer James Whitfield speechless. He had expected anger, demands for justice, threats of lawsuits. Instead, he found a woman whose moral character stood in stark contrast to his own actions. Dr. Philip Adeyemi told the police officer to let go of his grip. "Officer, you ought to know that this incident will be reported to all relevant authorities. Dr. Okonkwo is one of our top surgeons, and this attack on her is an attack on all us medicos." Officer James Whitfield did not react to the news. He understood his career was finished and without a life. As Dr. Layla Okonkwo moved on to check on other patients despite her injuries, the weight of his prejudice and its consequences descended upon him. She walked with quiet dignity down the corridor and greeted each family with the same warmth and professionalism as Mrs. Linda Whitfield. It was a bittersweet moment seeing how different she was from him. Officer James Whitfield recognized that he was finally witnessing strength and character, and yet he had not noticed or respected that before. Dr. Layla Okonkwo vanished into another patient room as Officer James Whitfield stood in the hallway, alone. He felt people's stares, people who understood precisely what kind of man he had proven to be. The glaring bright lights of the hospital revealed every character flaw, every poor judgment that culminated to this moment of him being there. He had committed a brutal injustice, and no amount of his sorry would undo the damage he had done to the woman who saved his daughter's life. The notification sound on Detective Carl Simmons' phone buzzed incessantly as he sat at his desk in the fluorescent-lit precinct bullpen. The overhead lights cast harsh shadows across his green button-down shirt and dark blue jacket as he scrolled through his social media feed, his expression growing darker with each swipe. The dashcam and bodycam footage from Officer James Whitfield's traffic stop had somehow found its way onto every platform imaginable. "Chief Marsh needs to see this immediately," Detective Simmons muttered, watching the view count climb exponentially. The video showed the entire encounter in devastating clarity. Dr. Layla Okonkwo, standing peacefully beside her luxury sedan in her blue scrubs and white lab coat, explaining her profession with exhausted patience, only to be tased without warning by Officer James Whitfield in his short-sleeved uniform. Across town, at Metropolitan General Hospital, the natural skylight streaming through the cafeteria windows illuminated clusters of medical staff hunched over their phones. The footage had reached them too, spreading through group chats and social media like wildfire. Dr. Raymond Yusuf stood near the vending machines in his orange surgical top and blue jacket, his face contorted with rage as he watched the video for the third time. "This is the woman who just spent 16 hours saving a child's life," he said to Dr. Priya Nair, who wore her standard red physician's coat over blue scrubs. "The comments section is exploding," Dr. Priya Nair replied, scrolling rapidly. "People are sharing it everywhere. Look at this hashtag, Saved a Life Goddess said. It's trending nationally." Nurse Teresa Gibbs approached them with the brilliance of her red uniform and its light. "Dr. Okonkwo is doing the pediatric rounds. She doesn't even know yet. Should we tell her?" Viral outbreak reached far beyond the walls of the hospital. Assignment editors in newsrooms across the country scrambled to cover the story. The story went viral. A black neurosurgeon, just having saved a child's life, was tased by a white policeman who thought she had stolen her own car. As she performed her rounds in new blue scrubs and a white coat, the harsh hospital lights revealed the bruises from yesterday on Dr. Layla Okonkwo's face. "I checked on Emma Whitfield, a tiny figure curled up in bed, surrounded by beeping monitors in a white hospital room. How are you feeling today, sweetheart?" Dr. Layla Okonkwo asked gently, her professional demeanor masking her own physical discomfort. Emma's eyes slowly opened. "My head does not hurt as much anymore, Dr. Okonkwo. Mummy says you are the one who fixed me," Dr. Layla Okonkwo replied, checking the girl's pupils with a penlight. "We all worked together to make you better." Light from the windows added to the tubes and made the examination convenient for her. Meanwhile, in her office, Police Chief Gloria Marsh sat staring into nothingness, the bright overhead light making shadows of her face. Wearing a blue jacket over a white blouse, Mulaik was monitoring the video with a grave expression on his face. Since the video went viral an hour ago, she kept receiving calls on her phone. "Get Officer Whitfield in here now," she barked to her aide. "Reach out to Internal Affairs. Captain Grant has to see this." The video had already been viewed over 2 million times and shared hundreds of thousands more. Comments poured in from medical professionals, civil rights advocates, and ordinary citizens expressing outrage at the treatment Dr. Layla Okonkwo had endured. Attorney Vanessa Cruz sat in her downtown office, the natural skylight and overhead fluorescent lighting illuminating her red blazer and black slacks. She had already fielded a dozen calls from colleagues alerting her to the viral video. Her reputation for handling police misconduct cases made her the obvious choice to represent Dr. Layla Okonkwo. She dialed the hospital's main number. "This is Attorney Vanessa Cruz. I need to speak with Dr. Layla Okonkwo immediately regarding a potential civil rights case." At the hospital, Hospital Administrator Dr. Philip Adeyemi was then pacing his office under the fluorescent light. The agitated man put on a green shirt and a blue jacket to prepare for an emergency press conference. The respect of the hospital was at stake, but more importantly, one of their top surgeons was treated in an awful way. The media hype just kept getting bigger as the morning progressed. Outside Metropolitan General Hospital, news vans parked in droves. Their satellite dishes were upturned against the skies. In garish costumes, reporters were ready in the natural light for a live link on the surgeon tased after saving a life. Officer James Whitfield sat on the couch at home, watching the television as his career ended on every channel and his world collapsed. As he scrolled through the endless condemnation, the bright lights overhead in his home were harsh and unforgiving. A closet held his short-sleeved police uniform worn the day before. That was considered a disgrace. The woman in the red sweater sitting in front of him was Mrs. Linda Whitfield. Her face was pale and covered with shock and confusion. "James, is that really Dr. Okonkwo, the one who saved Emma?" Yes, said Officer James Whitfield, unable to look at his wife. "You assault the woman who saved our daughter's life?" Mrs. Linda Whitfield's voice broke with horror. Outside their suburban home, protesters had already begun to gather. The natural light illuminated signs that read, "Justice for Dr. Okonkwo," and "Police brutality stops here." News crews had set up across the street. Dr. Layla Okonkwo learned about the viral video when Dr. Raymond Yusuf found her in the break room. Fluorescent lighting buzzed overhead as she sat at a small desk, eating a quick lunch while reviewing patient charts. "Layla, take a look at this," Dr. Raymond Yusuf said gently while handing her over his phone. Dr. Layla Okonkwo sat silently on the plastic white chair in blue scrubs and watched the clip. Her facial expressions didn't change. However, the people standing around her watched how she was reliving the traumatic experience. "Who all have seen this? It's a million. It is here and there. The news agency is calling the hospital from across the country. Within hours, Dr. Philip Adeyemi will hold his press conference in the hospital's main lobby. Sunlight from the large windows and bright fluorescent overhead bulbs made for the perfect light for the cameras. Standing at his podium in a formal blue jacket, he was flanked by hospital officials in formal outfits. Dr. Philip Adeyemi told journalists that Dr. Layla Okonkwo is a great doctor who has made it his life's mission to save lives. The hospital gives Dr. Okonkwo full support after she underwent a 16-hour surgery to save a child's life. What they did is totally unconscionable." The live broadcast of the press conference blew everything out of proportion. Dr. Layla Okonkwo received overwhelming support on social media. Medical professionals shared their experiences of discrimination. Advocacy groups are calling for justice. The hashtag #SavedALifeGottaseed continued trending as the story went global. Captain Felicia Grant from Internal Affairs visited the precinct in her formal blue jacket worn over a white blouse. As they meet in the conference room where Ms. Williams' benefactor Police Chief Gloria Marsh, everything was very bright under fluorescent lighting. The strangling the many people situation was serious, according to Police Chief Gloria Marsh. This is not a public relations disaster alone, but also extensive force, including civil rights violation. "I'm opening a formal investigation immediately," Captain Felicia Grant replied. "Officer Whitfield needs to be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome." The decision came swiftly. By afternoon, Officer James Whitfield received the call informing him of his suspension. The natural daylight streaming through his living room windows seemed to mock him as his career officially began its death spiral. Dr. Layla Okonkwo continued her patient rounds, despite the chaos swirling around her. In Emma Whitfield's room, the overhead fluorescent lighting provided optimal visibility as she conducted her evening examination. The little girl was showing remarkable progress, her vital signs stable and neurological responses improving. "Dr. Okonkwo," Emma said in her small voice, Why are there so many people with cameras outside? Dr. Layla Okonkwo smiled gently, adjusting the child's blanket. Sometimes adults have disagreements about important things, but you don't need to worry about that. You just focus on getting better. As news of Officer James Whitfield's suspension broke, Attorney Vanessa Cruz worked late into the evening in her office. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she reviewed civil rights statutes and prepared her case strategy. The viral video provided irrefutable evidence of the violation Dr. Layla Okonkwo had endured. Dr. Layla Okonkwo was getting tremendous support continually. Medical schools circulated the story among their students as a model of professional behavior under pressure. Statements from civil rights organizations condemned police brutality. Families of patients who were treated by Dr. Layla Okonkwo came forward with testimonials about her skill and compassion. By the evening, the story had made it to the primetime news shows. Dressed in their vibrant work gear, with studio lights shining on them, anchors were discussing the case with lawyers and activists. Each time the footage played, more outrage was expressed at Dr. Layla Okonkwo's treatment and its aftermath. With her red cardigan on, Mrs. Linda Whitfield sat in Emma's hospital room under the warm fluorescent light while Emma slept. The woman that saved Emma's life suffered abuse by Emma's own father. The irony was heartbreaking. With that realization, she felt as if she was pressed down with immense weight. Dr. Layla Okonkwo had one last check on her patients before the end of her shift. As she moved through the hospital, not quite a hero yet a victim, the overhead lights in the corridors cast long shadows over her and her blue scrubs and white coat. She was being hailed now in a building. Due to the viral story, Officer James Whitfield's actions would have repercussions that were far worse than he could ever have imagined. It was clear from the video that he did this was wrong. As it is in high definition, it would not be disputed what had happened, and there would be no other story. Dr. Layla Okonkwo couldn't help but reflect on how things had changed so quickly as she left the hospital. Last night she had been a tired surgeon going home after saving one. Today she occupied a central role in a national discussion on police violence and racial justice. The parking garage was lit up by fluorescent lights as she walked towards her vehicle. It was a luxury sedan that had led to Officer James Whitfield's assumptions and had led her to this moment. The video, which has gone viral, had turned a private injustice public. The dignity exhibited by Dr. Layla Okonkwo in the face of brutality has inspired millions, while the actions of Officer James Whitfield has cost him his career and might have ruined his family's future as well. Her story reached unimaginable heights thanks to social media ensuring that justice wouldn't be swept under the carpet. With the world watching, there would be no escaping the ramifications of what that dashcam and bodycam had picked up. The viral storm has just begun to unleash its impact on their lives, careers, and institutions in a manner they had never imagined. The fluorescent lights in Captain Felicia Grant's office cast harsh shadows across the thick manila folder spread before her. She wore a crisp green blouse beneath her blue uniform jacket, her muscular frame rigid with the weight of her findings. Across from her, Police Chief Gloria Marsh sat in silence, her red blazer a stark contrast to the damning evidence laid out between them. 23 complaints in 5 years, Captain Grant said, her voice cutting through the morning air streaming from the overhead skylights. Excessive force, racial profiling, unnecessary aggression, all filed against Officer James Whitfield, all buried in bureaucratic procedures. Police Chief Marsh leaned forward, studying the photographs and witness statements. Each document painted a picture of systematic abuse, a pattern of behavior that had been overlooked, dismissed, or quietly settled. The bodycam footage of Dr. Layla Okonkwo's assault wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination of years of unchecked prejudice. Mrs. Carmen Rodriguez tased during a wellness check on her elderly mother. Captain Grant continued, flipping through the files. Marcus Thompson, beaten during a routine traffic stop for a broken taillight. Sarah Kim, pepper-sprayed while asking for directions after her car broke down. The weight of institutional failure pressed down on both women. Each name represented a moment when the system had failed, when complaints had been filed away and forgotten, while Officer Whitfield continued his patrol with impunity. "I'm terminating him immediately," Police Chief Marsh declared, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the decision. "And I'm recommending criminal charges to the district attorney. This ends today." The press conference that followed would reshape the conversation about police accountability in their city. Under the bright television lights and camera flashes, Police Chief Marsh stood at a podium, her red blazer commanding attention as she addressed the gathered media and community members. "Officer James Whitfield has been terminated from this police department, effective immediately," she said. "Furthermore, we are recommending criminal charges for assault, civil rights violation, and excessive force to the district attorney's office." The crowd erupted into applause and shouted questions. For many in the community, particularly those who had similar experiences, this moment was a rare example of validation of a proven belief they held for decades. That same day, the district attorney, Michelle Torres, received the case file. In her office downtown, surrounded by law books and case precedents, she began to review the evidence with her prosecutorial team. The video is clear, the pattern is established, and the public interest is unassailable. "We're looking at federal civil rights violations under Section 1983, she explained to her staff, the large windows bathing her in natural light in her orange blouse. "This case will show that no one is above the law, not even a badge." Meanwhile, across town in the sleek offices of Cruz & Associates, Dr. Layla Okonkwo sat across from a tiger-stripe suited lawyer named Vanessa Cruz. Cruz's red suit matches her fierce reputation for civil rights work, and the two lay a plan of action with a lot more than money at stake. "This is not just about what happened to you, Dr. Okonkwo," Cruz said, placing her hands on stacks of others. "This will result in changing systems so other healthcare workers, other professionals, other innocent people don't go through what you did." Dr. Layla Okonkwo wore a professional green blouse beneath her white medical coat, having come directly from her rounds. Despite the trauma she had endured, her commitment to her patients remained unwavering. Her dark eyes reflected both pain and determination as she considered the broader implications of legal action. "I became a doctor to save lives," she said quietly. "If this lawsuit can prevent other officers from nearly ending lives through prejudice and violence, then it's worth pursuing." The civil lawsuit they would file would seek damages not just for the physical assault, but for the broader pattern of civil rights violations that the police department had enabled through its failures of oversight and accountability. Dr. Philip Adeyemi's emergency meeting with heads of departments at Metropolitan General Hospital created apprehension. The fluorescent lights in the conference room buzzed. Every chair was filled by the medical staff. Anger, concern, and determination appeared on their faces. Dr. Adeyemi said, "What happened to Dr. Okonkwo can happen to any of us," as he rocked a blue jacket that was clean despite the scene. "In order to ensure safety, security measures will be initiated for all medical personnel, especially those going to and fro the hospital at odd hours." Nurse Teresa Gibbs stood up in standard red scrubs to address the room. Dr. Okonkwo saved a child's life and was beaten up for the color of her skin. "We need to protect our people, but more importantly, we need to fully support her." There was a chorus of agreement. Shortly thereafter, the hospital would announce increased security, increased partnership opportunities with civil rights organizations, and greater support for any employee who was discriminated against or harassed. Officer James Whitfield has suffered the consequences of his actions. His salary, benefits, and pension were lost immediately because the termination took effect. Through a single moment of bias-inspired violence against the woman who rescued his daughter, 20 years of service were erased from history. In a modest suburban home, Mrs. Linda Whitfield was facing the financial and social consequences of her husband's actions. Sitting at their kitchen table, clothed in a simple red sweater, Surrounded by bills and legal documents, she balanced checks against the background of their completely changed world. The neighbors who used to wave at her would cross to the other side of the street now. As she came near, there were murmurs in the grocery store, and it went silent. My daughter Emma, recuperating from her surgery, innocently asked, "Mommy, why isn't Daddy going to work anymore?" 8-year-old Emma, on a sunny afternoon, feels relieved. "Mommy," she says, "remember the nice doctor? The one who helped me? Can we go and visit her?" Mrs. Linda Whitfield's heart ached with the impossible intricacies of this situation. Her husband attacked the woman who saved their daughter's life. How was she to face Dr. Okonkwo? How could she not? The first light of the day caressed the bright corridors of the Metropolitan General Hospital as Mrs. Linda Whitfield. The fluorescent lights in the ceiling seemed more brusque than she recalled, and every health professional they passed appeared to recognize them from the news. Dr. Layla Okonkwo was found in the pediatric recovery ward, wearing her green blouse under a white coat. She was visiting her patients with the same detail she has been for years. The sight of Emma and her mother did not faze her professionalism. A doctor warmly kneeled down to speak with a child. "How you doing today?" "Much better, Dr. Okonkwo," Emma replied childishly. "Mummy says you saved my life. I just wanted to thank you." Through her tears, Mrs. Linda Whitfield watched the woman her husband had horrified, gently checking their daughter, testing her reflexes, and asking about her recovery. The grace with which Dr. Okonkwo handled that moment of impossible tension, her professional conduct, left Mrs. Linda Whitfield quite literally speechless. "Okonkwo," she said at last, and her voice choked with emotion, "I cannot find words to apologize for what my husband did. You saved our daughter." And he, Dr. Okonkwo, stood slowly, her eyes meeting Mrs. Linda Whitfield with a pained understanding. "Emma is one of my patients," she said. "It hasn't changed, and it never will. She deserves the best care available, no matter what." Both women would be haunted by the encounter. For Mrs. Linda Whitfield, it crystallized the moral tragedy of her husband's acts. For Dr. Okonkwo, having such faith continually reinforced her commitment to healing despite her own pain. Meanwhile, Dr. Okonkwo's treatment was receiving a groundswell of support from the medical profession. In a statement, the American Medical Association condemned the attack. She was invited to speak on healthcare equity and professional resilience by medical schools around the country. Dr. Raymond Yusuf, the chief of surgery, nominated her for the hospital's highest honor for professional excellence. In his letter of recommendation, he wrote, "Dr. Okonkwo embodies the finest qualities of our profession. Her skill saved a child's life, and her grace under unimaginable pressure saved our faith in human decency." For Officer James Whitfield, isolation became his daily reality. Former colleagues who had once shared coffee and patrol stories now refused his calls. The thin blue line that had protected him for years had finally been crossed by his actions that were too egregious to defend or ignore. Detective Carl Simmons, who had worked alongside Officer Whitfield for over a decade, struggled with the revelation of his partner's true nature. "I thought I knew him," he told investigators, but looking back, there were signs. Comments he made, the way he talked about certain neighborhoods, certain people. We should have seen it coming. After Officer Whitfield's scandal, the brotherhood that once protected him now shunned his toxic behavior. All the police officers in the city were being questioned about their own practices, their own biases, their own complicity in a system that had allowed such behavior to go unchecked. As Captain Grant expanded his inquiry, several victims came forward to testify. Residents who had similar experiences testified in public meetings, but never thought their complaints would get attention. "I felt like I was nothing. I felt like my life didn't matter. I felt like I deserved whatever he decided to do to me," said Marcus Thompson, who still bears the scars from his encounter with Officer Whitfield 2 years ago. As each testimony unfolded, they pushed his case further for criminal charges. The district attorney's office was working its way through evidence to build charges that would result in real consequences for years of the officer's systematic abuse. The impacts were felt throughout the police department. Chief Marsh has since put in place reforms aimed at de-escalation and implicit bias training. Body cameras will become mandatory for all interactions. Community oversight boards will have real power to investigate complaints and recommend discipline. Dr. Layla Okonkwo found strength in dark days with support from her community of professionals. Medical organizations from around the country gave her awards and recognition, but more importantly, her colleagues provided her hands-on support and solidarity. Young doctors wrote her letters in which they said that her dignity and professionalism in the face of injustices inspired them to heal. Other established physicians discussed their experiences of discrimination, which created a network that was not just a one-off. As court proceedings advanced, and the community struggled with the bigger implications from Officer Whitfield's behavior, one thing became crystal clear: consequences, real-life consequences, were finally beginning to arrive for the people who misuse their power and violate the community's trust to protect and serve. The system, which had repeatedly failed to respond to past violations with seriousness, was now sending a clear message that enough is enough. In this instance, it had succeeded, providing the hope for change other such events had not. Half a year later, the afternoon sun filled Metropolitan General Hospital's pediatric ward through the large windows, creating warm rays on the bright linoleum floor. In bright fluorescent light, 8-year-old Emma Whitfield was propped up in bed, her dark hair in a braid, wearing a red hospital gown over blue pajama bottoms. The little girl in the picture was coloring a book. Her eyes were alive and full of intelligence. The little hand of hers was clutching the crayons tightly. Dr. Layla Okonkwo entered the room in green surgical scrubs and his white medical coat with a stethoscope on his neck. The sunlight revealed her warm smile as she approached the bedside of Emma with clipboard in hand, containing the final tests. "Well, Miss Emma," Dr. Layla said as her happiness radiated, "I have something wonderful to tell you." Emma looked up, setting down her red crayon. "Well, what is it, Dr. Layla?" "Your last brain scans show total healing. There is no swelling. Blood flow is perfect. There is no issue with any of your brain functions. Congratulations, you are officially discharged." Emma's face lit up with the biggest smile that Dr. Layla had seen after the surgery. The little girl surpassed every expectation and was recovering better and faster than anyone could have imagined. The complex 16-hour surgery had not only saved her life, but also restored her to perfect health. "Does this mean I can go back to school and play soccer again?" "Yes, sweetheart. You can do everything you did before. Your brain has healed beautifully, and you're going to live a completely normal, healthy life." Emma threw her arms around Dr. Layla's waist, hugging her tightly. "Thank you for saving me, Dr. Layla. Mommy told me you're the reason I'm still here." Dr. Layla's eyes glistened as she returned the embrace. This moment made everything worth it. Every hour of surgery, every challenge she had faced afterward. Conversely, across town, at the stark fluorescent-lit county courthouse, Judge Patricia Henderson saw Officer James Whitfield clad in an Orange County prison jumpsuit and a blue slip-on shoe. He was handcuffed in front as a consequence of his actions. "Officer Whitfield," Judge Henderson said with firmness, "you have pleaded guilty to assault in the 2nd degree, violation of civil rights under color of law, and excessive application of force. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," James said quietly, almost inaudibly. "By acting against Dr. Okonkwo, you committed a crime and betrayed the oath which you pledged to protect and serve all citizens without any discrimination. The woman you assaulted had spent 16 hours saving your daughter's life." James's shoulders slumped as the shame hit him. In the gallery, Detective Carl Simmons scoffed silently at the fall from grace of his former partner. "I hereby sentence you to 18 months in county jail followed by 2 years of probation and 500 hours of community service focused on diversity training and community healing. You'll also get mandatory counseling for racial bias. As the bailiff led James away, his former life as a police officer was officially over. His pension was gone, his reputation destroyed, and his family shattered by his prejudice and violence. That same afternoon, Dr. Layla Okonkwo stood in the bright conference room of her attorney's office, natural skylight streaming through the windows. Attorney Vanessa Cruz, wearing a sharp red blazer over black pants, handed her a check representing the settlement from her civil lawsuit against the police department. $2.5 million, Vanessa said with satisfaction. The city wanted to settle quickly to avoid a longer trial that would expose more systemic issues. Dr. Layla gazed contemplatively at the check. It was never about the money for me. It was about accountability, making sure this doesn't happen to others. What action will you take with it? Dr. Layla looked back with a purpose. I am starting the Okonkwo Foundation for Healthcare Equity to provide legal support, counseling, and advocacy to minority healthcare workers who face harassment and discrimination. The foundation was up and running in no time. Dr. Layla collaborated with the hospital administrator Dr. Philip Adeyemi to initiate the program from the Metropolitan General. In the new foundation office of the hospital, bright fluorescent lights illuminated desks where advocates supported healthcare professionals facing prejudice. The influence was not only personal. The case had sparked reforms throughout the city. Police Chief Gloria Marsh instituted training on bias, accountability systems, and community oversight committees. Under the leadership of Captain Felicia Grant, a unit investigating police misconduct was formed to ensure people like Officer James Whitfield can no longer hide. Dr. Layla of the hospital corridor met Dr. Raymond Yusuf one morning with a proud face. Layla, I just got off the phone with the American Medical Association, and they want to give you the Distinguished Service Award for professional excellence and advocacy. I was just doing my job, Raymond. I'm honored, but no, you did a lot more than that. Your ability to conduct yourself with dignity and professionalism in the face of injustice has made the world a better place. You have motivated a lot of health professionals to take a stand for themselves and their patients. The accolades didn't stop there. Medical publications highlighted the incident, but also Dr. Layla's wonderful surgical skills and how she took care of her patients. Medical schools, hospitals, and advocacy groups invited her to speak at their events all across the nation. Meanwhile, the Whitfield family was rebuilding in another way. Mrs. Linda Whitfield, wearing a red top and blue jeans, sat across from Dr. Layla in the hospital cafeteria under the overhead lights. Meanwhile, she had Emma drawing pictures of doctors and hospitals. Dr. Okonkwo, I'm really sorry, Linda says. I filed for divorce last month. I should have informed you, but I was grieving for you. I can't continue being married to a man who could attack the woman who saved our daughter's life. With that, Dr. Layla reached across the table and tapped Linda's hand. You are not responsible for his actions, Linda. You are a good mother, and Emma is lucky to be your daughter. I don't know how you can be so nice to us after what he did to you, because that's not who you are. And Emma needs to see that good people can overcome bad situations. Linda wiped away tears. Emma asks about you constantly. She says she wants to be a doctor just like you when she grows up. Dr. Layla smiled warmly. She's a bright, strong little girl. She can be anything she wants to be. As months passed, changes continued to radiate outwards. James Whitfield had his sentence served after he attended counseling, which was done in the therapy rooms with fluorescent lights in the County Rehabilitation Center. His therapist, Dr. Marcus Thompson, black psychologist in a green shirt with a blue jacket, helped James challenge his entrenched prejudices in a patient manner. Dr. Thompson once asked James, at the time of traffic stop, what happened to you? James, in an orange jail suit, staring at the ground. I spotted a black woman in a luxury car and couldn't accept it. I thought she must have criminal connections or something. There's no other reason she'd be able to afford it. And now I see that my assumptions nearly destroyed someone innocent who had just saved my daughter. He had to endure that pain for the rest of his life. The therapy, while painful, did force James to confront the racist beliefs that had cost him so much. 2 years after the fact, Dr. Leila Okonkwo stood at the podium in the Grand Ballroom at the National Medical Conference in Chicago. The gigantic room was filled with many hundreds of healthcare professionals, well lit by bright overhead chandeliers and the natural light filtering in through tall windows. The red blazer, worn by her over black pants, made her appear confident in postures. Doctors, nurses, managers, and advocates from across the country gathered to attend her keynote address on health equity, including the audience. 2 years ago, I went through an experience that could have broken me, Dr. Leila said, her voice ringing out clear as day. After taking 16 hours to save a child's life, I got attacked by a cop who couldn't believe a black woman could be a neurosurgeon. The audience listened intently, many nodding in recognition of similar experiences. But I want to tell you something important. I'm not broken. You're not broken. That moment of injustice was the beginning of change. Not only me, but the whole of my profession. Dr. Leila gestured to a large screen, showing statistics about the foundation's impact. The Okonkwo Foundation has now supported over 300 healthcare workers facing discrimination. We've helped change policies at 50 hospitals nationwide. We've provided legal assistance, counseling, and advocacy that has saved careers and lives. The audience erupted in applause, rising to their feet. But the real victory isn't in the money we've raised or the policies we've changed. It's in the little girl who inspired to become a doctor after seeing how we responded to hatred with healing. It's in the police departments that now train officers to recognize their biases. It's in each of you who refuse to let prejudice define your practice or limit your potential. Dr. Leila took a moment, looking at the sea of faces from every background and ethnicity in medicine. While prejudice cannot be eliminated overnight, we can choose how we react to it, allow it to harden and bitter us, or use it to work for change. I chose change and would urge each of you to do the same. The audience stood at their feet for many minutes, and tears were observed on many faces. Later that evening, when Dr. Leila reached her hotel room, she video called Emma Whitfield, who is 10 years old and now in 5th grade. When she appeared on screen, she was seen wearing a red polo t-shirt and blue skirt, which is her school uniform. Emma exclaimed, "Dr. Leila, I got an A for my project on the human brain." "That's so sweet, darling. Tell me more." I described the process of performing brain surgery and how doctors like you save lives. According to my teacher, it was the best project in class. "I am going to be just like you, Dr. Leila," Emma said confidently, "and I am going to be an excellent doctor someday." Dr. Faim. Leila reflected that her ailment had led to a historic change in healthcare and policing. Moreover, the attack that was supposed to destroy her had made her strong enough to start this novel revolution. Emma was completely cured and would finally lead a normal life. The call to the doctor personified this radiant optimism. After doing his time, James Whitfield was working as a custodian while still undergoing further counseling and gradually learning to face down and overcome the prejudices that destroyed him. The justice system held him accountable, and the community could now heal. Most important of all, the supportive note gave Dr. Leila a renewed purpose to continue her surgical practice. The hospital ramped up security to protect all workers from harassment and has set new rules. Her co-workers were in her corner, and her patients were still getting excellent treatment, which saved Emma's life. That night, as Dr. Leila prepared for sleep in her hotel room, she thought about the words she had spoken to the medical conference. She had transformed a moment of brutal injustice into a movement for positive change. Emma Whitfield was alive and dreaming of becoming a doctor. Hundreds of healthcare workers had received support through her foundation. Police departments were implementing better training and accountability measures. The story had started with hatred and violence, but it ended with healing, justice, and hope for a better future. You just heard a story that history tried to overlook. If it stayed with you, take a second to stand with it. Subscribe, share, and help us keep telling the stories that deserve light, not silence.